So weird, it's such a tight little circle. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. On today's episode of Why Does This Exist, we're going to be talking about the Olight Odin Turbo. Now, before we get into that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as all that sort of stuff is free, and comment literally anything down below, because Olights are some of the most divisive items on the internet right now. So, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some of the specifics about the item before I talk about why it's pretty bad. So, it costs about $250 MSRP. That comes with a mount, with a magnetic tail switch. I'm actually pretty indifferent to their tail switches. Some people hate them, some people love them, and I think they work just fine. Now, for 250 bucks, that's pretty darn expensive, because that's getting close to like Surefire bodies and stuff like that for just a body without a mount or a tail switch, but that's still in a much higher price category than most people are willing to spend on a light, and especially a light that is very, very specialized. Now, I know that they can go on sale for like $200-ish, but still that's more of a mid-range price for, again, kind of a oddball light. Now, full disclosure, they did send this out to me, so I did not pay for this, and on top of that, they've given me affiliate links. If you use those links, I'm not going to include them in the description or anything else like that, but if you manage to find those links, I would make 10% off of any purchase that you made on their website. Now, what makes this light kind of odd is that it uses Lep Emitter Technology. I forget what it stands for, but I looked it up, and the technology is actually fairly cool, if not all that useful for a rifle-mounted light. And that's what this is. This is a rifle-mounted light. That's what it comes with. It comes with a Picatinny mount and, of course, a tail switch for mounting to a Picatinny rail. So this is most definitely a rifle light first. Now, I'll show you on the board behind me, but it is, if I can aim it, that is a very, very tight beam pattern. And with that Lep technology, they are able to make an insanely intense beam of 330 lumens, but 250,000 candela. Now, 250,000 candela is pretty insane. I think Mod Light right now is like one of the brightest, or I should say the highest candela lights you can get on the market. Candela is basically punch, while lumens is total light output. So 300 is definitely on the low end, but 250,000, I think it's like 237,000, is definitely towards the high end. Now, the downside of that obviously is that at about 5-10 yards, you only have a couple inches of illumination, which is pretty useless in almost all circumstances. Now, with that 250,000 candela, though, you can absolutely stretch this out to 3, 4, 5, possibly even 600 yards in real-world conditions, depending on the air quality and how much debris is floating around. Like if it's foggy out or something else like that, it's obviously going to reduce your vision. But with 250,000 candela, you can absolutely reach out and touch something at long range. The problem is that at about 50 yards, you still only have about 5, 6, 7 feet of illumination. So it's very, very difficult to actually find what you're looking for. So as far as a rifle light goes, that's going to be its biggest con, as well. That, yeah, it's super cool that you can get that much candela in a small handheld light like this, but overall, it's just not all that useful. And to kind of demonstrate you how sometimes the light can be absolutely useless is if we put it on this mount, which this is their mounting system. So again, slides in place. They also have angled mounts for like M-LOK, and I don't think they make key mod mounts, but this one here actually broke on me, so this one might be a little bit more difficult to get in place. It actually is, so we're gonna go and put it over here. Anyway, so it fits right in there, slides in place just fine, but now the problem is that this light is not zeroed, and since it is basically a laser beam, if it is off canted left, right, up, or down, especially at longer ranges, 50, 100 yards, it becomes absolutely unusable because it does not illuminate a large enough area that you can actually see anything through your optic. So during the night shooting that I've done with this, I used it with an LPVO, and even at like 60, 70 yards, it was off. So I'd have to like fidget with the mount and see if I can move the mount a little bit, because again, there's no way to zero the light itself to push it one way or the other. If there were, I would have a lot fewer complaints with it. But as it sits mounted to a rifle, unless you have a way of shimming it or making it do something that you want to do in terms of zeroing it, it's going to be basically useless past a certain distance unless you have just magical alignment between your barrel, your Picatinny, whatever rail that you're attaching it to, and of course the light itself. Now this mount looks super wobbly on here, and that's because I actually broke it. I had it on my AR-10, my PSA Gen 3 AR-10, and I set it on the roof of my car, my Ford Explorer, so from about 6 feet, and it dropped onto concrete, landed right on the light, and it broke one of these tiny little screws on the mount that holds the mount adapter in place. So now it wobbles terribly. So under recoil, this just flops all over the place, of course, and when you're dealing with such a small beam of light, it makes it basically unusable. Now I don't really blame that. Most mounts would break if they dropped from 6 feet onto concrete on top of like a 14-pound AR. So I don't really blame it that much. It is just a bad design with the two tiny little screws on the mount. And that is actually a major flaw on all Odin lights, not just the Turbo, the Odin Mini, and of course the Odin Turbo now, all have that same exact mounting design with those two tiny little Chinesium screws. And if they suffer a hard impact, they will break, and I have broken 2 of those mounts. Now, not only is it expensive and fairly niche in terms of use case, but it's also huge. For instance, this is an Odin on my left. This is a fairly large light. This is larger than the Streamlight HLX on the Roscoe gun behind me, the quad rail behind me, and the Odin Turbo is 20% larger and heavier than that. Now, there are a couple cool features about it, and I'm going to give you one use case scenario that I would personally use it for, since I do have it. And that is long-range target illumination. Now, with the 330 lumen output and then the 237,000 candela, you get a whopping 7.5 hours of illumination of runtime. So that is pretty excellent, and that's just kind of one of the nifty features of the cool LEP technology, and also the monstrous 5,000 milliamp hour battery. This is, what do they call it, 217C50. It is a custom cell battery that they have made for them, which is one of the nice things about their lights actually, is they have huge batteries that are custom made when they don't explode, although that's more of a meme online that only ever happened once as far as I could tell, and it wasn't even an Olight light that did that. It was some aftermarket battery inside of an Olight that caused it to explode, but you can look into that for yourself. That is a hotly debated topic on the internet. So now what I mean by long range target illumination on the light is basically, let's say I'm up in Capitol Forest and it gets dark and I still want to do my shooting at 300-400 yards. Well, I can simply set this light up on like a tripod or something else like that, just duct tape to it, and then aim it pointed at the target, and I can still shoot all night, basically at extended distances, where even if I was using night vision goggles, it would still be difficult to reach 300, 400, 500 yards at night. Now that's just for target shooting, not for like a real world application. Theoretically, it could also be used for like search and rescue if you're searching like a hillside and you want to see something again 400, 500, 600 yards away. This is the only handheld light or rifle mounted light on the market that can do that sort of thing. But again, it is just so niche and so minute of a use case that it basically makes it useless. Now, another thing about it is, if I was, say, trying to find something or somebody from a long distance away and I was looking over hillsides or something else like that in the distance, you only get the high powered mode on when you're using the tail switch. Now, I'm not sure if that's just a glitch with my light. Usually on an Odin, you get your low mode from a soft press, and then the high mode, of course, when you do the full press. However, on this guy, you get the soft press and nothing on the high press. The only way to get the high mode engaged, which is the full 237,000 candela, is when you attach the tail switch to it. So that means I would either have to sit here two-handed using it like this, or be pointing it on top of a rifle, which is not always ideal, pointing a rifle around in random places where you don't know who's out there. Now, of course, if you do know who's out there, then have at it. But again, just the fact that it kind of needs to be mounted to a rifle, or at least awkwardly held to get the full power out of it, is definitely a little bit awkward. So unless you're in that exceptionally small niche that needs a pinpoint laser beam of a light that's not an actual laser, so it does have some width of illumination, this has to be a hard pass. Now, even if it did have a way to zero it on your rifle, so you could use it on a specific rifle at 200, 300, 400 yards, it would still be very limited in its use case, because it would need to be paired with a secondary light with more of a flood so that you could actually see things up close. It could have a little bit more of a use, but again, not all that useful. But it would need to have some sort of system built into the mount that that you could zero it to your rail, your optic, your barrel, all that sort of fun stuff. So again, unless you fall into one of those insanely small niches, this is a hard pass. So not really sure why it exists. There is a very, very, very small use case for it, but it probably doesn't apply to anybody watching this video. So that's about it, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of this light down in the descriptions, or if there's any use cases that you actually do use it for, or similar styled lights, if there are any on the market. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.